My girlfriend, Clara, was supposed to pick me up from work, but when her car pulled up, I saw her male colleague sitting in the passenger seat. She explained that he got carsick easily and was dealing with a bad stomach bug, suggesting that as a fellow colleague, I should be more understanding of his situation. I just nodded and said that it was okay. Then, I ended our relationship in a way that I'm sure she never saw coming. "You broke up with her just for that?" my best friend Mark asked, his eyes wide with disbelief after I had recounted the story to him. He crushed the disposable coffee cup he was holding, clearly struggling to comprehend why I had so abruptly ended things with Clara, my girlfriend of 4 years. We had already been discussing marriage, and from the outside, everything seemed perfect. I remained composed as I answered him. "Yes, just for that." To everyone else, Clara was the ideal partner. She was a successful executive at a large corporation, earning a very comfortable salary. She had no real vices, was undeniably beautiful, and was, by most standards, considered way out of my league. I should have been the one holding on tight, afraid to lose her. But now, because she allowed her male colleague to occupy the passenger seat, I was the one walking away. It had all happened about 5 hours earlier. Clara arrived to pick me up from my office, just as she did most days. I walked over to the car and pulled open the passenger side door out of habit, only to find a young man I didn't recognize sitting there. He offered a weak, apologetic smile and quietly mumbled, "Hey, Leo," while adjusting the blazer that was draped over his shoulders. I recognized it as Clara's. From the driver's seat, my girlfriend explained the situation on his behalf. "This is Daniel. He gets motion sickness and he's not feeling well today. I'm going to drop him off at his place first since it's on the way. You can just sit in the back for today." She said it all so casually, her expression completely natural, that for a brief moment I almost thought her request was perfectly normal and nearly agreed. Perhaps we had been together for so long that she had forgotten how important personal boundaries were to me. As I stood there, her expression began to shift from casualness to impatience. I simply nodded my head. "Okay." Then, I closed the door, turned around, and walked away from her car without another word. After sending her a brief text message informing her that our relationship was over, I went directly to the apartment we shared to begin packing my belongings. I made sure to gather everything that was mine, including the fluffy dog we had adopted together. As I started to pack, I found myself wishing I could be like a character in a movie, someone who could just grab a single backpack containing all their worldly possessions and make a dramatic exit. Unfortunately, that wasn't my reality. Given the amount of stuff I had accumulated, I was likely going to need at least 2 moving vans to get everything out. Clara returned home while I was still in the middle of packing. Her forehead was damp with a thin sheen of sweat, and she was breathing heavily, a look of pure annoyance and confusion on her face. "What on earth is your problem?" she demanded, her tone implying that by simply asking the question, I was automatically the one at fault. I calmly turned her own words back on her. "No, what is your problem?" Her anger flared. "What are you so upset about? Is it because Daniel was in the passenger seat? He has a stomach flu and gets carsick. He's my colleague. Can't you have a little bit of compassion?" Clara was clearly furious. She grabbed the suitcase I was packing and hurled it against the wall with surprising force. "The loud crash startled my dog, buddy." I stared at her, my expression unreadable, and took a small, almost unnoticeable step back. Her violent outburst sent a genuine flicker of fear through me. "For that comment alone," I said quietly, "we're finished." All of my most important possessions were already in the bag slung over my shoulder. I gently covered my small dog's ears, trying to shield him from the unpleasant sounds of our argument. Clara's face went blank for a second, the anger draining away to be replaced by shock. She knew me well enough to know that I never joked about breaking up. Still, She tried to shift the blame back to me. "We're about to get married. Just calm down and think about this." I replied immediately, my voice firm. "But we're not married yet, are we?" Her emotions were getting the better of her face flushing red as she reached out to grab my arm. I moved away quickly, avoiding her touch. "You need to spend the night here by yourself and cool off. I'm not staying here tonight." With that, I clipped the leash onto Buddy's collar and practically fled the apartment with him by my side. "So, why did you have to take the dog?" Mark asked later, a puzzled look on his face. "Were you afraid she would do something to Buddy?" After my hasty departure from the apartment, I had quickly realized that finding a hotel that allows pets on short notice was nearly impossible, so I had no choice but to call my friend for help. When Mark opened his door to find me and Buddy standing there silently, he was momentarily speechless. I was too. To be completely honest, back when Clara and I had first decided to get a dog, the thought of what would happen to him if we ever broke up had already crossed my mind. I had deliberately made sure that I was the one who paid for him. The purchase contract and all the official paperwork were solely in my name, a precaution I took so that I could simply take him with me if our relationship ever ended. Mark had told me at the time that if Clara ever discovered what I was thinking, she would be furious. He still couldn't seem to wrap his head around why I would end a 4-year relationship over what he saw as such a trivial incident. I could see that in his mind, breakups were supposed to be a slow process, the result of letting disappointment and resentment build up over time until you finally reached a breaking point and quietly walked away. But why should I force myself to endure that kind of repeated pain before finally deciding to leave? Why would I give someone that many opportunities to hurt me? The moment I recognized the first sign of a serious problem, I was ready to leave. There would be no hesitation. In my view, this entire situation was a test of my boundaries. If I had tolerated it this one time, it would have set a precedent, and there would have undoubtedly been a next time, and a time after that. I am not willing to continuously lower my personal standards for anyone. Mark frowned, a look of pity filling his eyes. "But what about the 4 years you spent together? Are you just going to throw all of that away?" I didn't offer a response. He let out a sigh. "I just really hope you don't end up regretting this decision." The following day, I arranged for a moving company to come to the apartment and collect the rest of my things. Clara hadn't gone into the office. She was sitting at the dining table, eating breakfast, while a tall man moved around in the kitchen behind her. It was her colleague, Daniel. When she saw me walk in, her eyes seemed to light up for a second before her expression turned cold and accusatory again. "Have you come to your senses? You blew such a small thing completely out of proportion. Daniel even came over this morning specifically to explain everything to you." Just then, Daniel emerged from the kitchen holding a bowl of porridge. He was wearing my apron. His hair was slightly damp, and he looked so comfortable and at ease that one might have mistaken him for the man of the house. He even offered me a gentle smile. "I'm sorry about yesterday, Leo. I really didn't mean for you to get the wrong impression. I wasn't feeling well, so Clara was just giving me a ride home. Please don't be angry with her because of me. I made some breakfast. Why don't you sit down and have some with us?" As he spoke, he casually reached over to refill Clara's bowl, revealing a fresh, red burn mark on his wrist. Clara's brow furrowed in concern immediately. "How were you so careless?" Daniel just smiled and shook his head. "It's nothing. It doesn't hurt anymore." Clara took his wrist in her hand and began to blow on the burn gently. "You idiot. Of course it hurts. Look at how red it is. Leo, go get the burn cream from the bathroom." A faint blush appeared on Daniel's face. I watched this entire exchange, a mixture of anger and disbelief welling up inside me until I almost had to laugh out loud. If I had been holding on to any lingering sentimental feelings for our 4-year relationship before that morning, they were now completely gone. "Are your hands broken?" I asked them both. Can't you get it yourself?" I walked past them without another glance, went straight into the bedroom, and resumed packing my belongings. Anything that I couldn't take with me, I told the movers they could give to the junk removal service for free. As Clara's face grew pale with shock, I systematically erased every last trace of my presence from the apartment. "Leo, you had better think this through very carefully," she said, her voice strained. "If you break up with me, you will never find anyone better than me. It's not too late. If you just put your things down right now, I'll pretend that none of this ever happened." I cut her off mid-sentence. "Are you sure you want to keep going with this?" My eyes flickered over to Daniel, who was now biting his lower lip so hard it looked like it might start to bleed. "If you say anything more, your colleague over there is going to start crying." Clara froze for a moment, then became flustered as she tried to explain. "I already told you he's just a colleague. Why can't you just let this go?" I scoffed at her words. "Well, I wouldn't let a colleague sit in my passenger seat and then lend them my coat to wear. And I certainly wouldn't allow a colleague to come into my home, wear your apron, and cook breakfast for me." After I had packed the last of my things into a box, I turned and looked at Clara one final time. She was standing in the doorway, her brows drawn together in a frown, her eyes looking slightly red. Her features were beautiful, which was fortunate because it kept her from looking too severe. In fact, her appearance was one of the main reasons I had been attracted to her in the first place. I pushed down the feeling of sadness in my chest and gave a small, final wave. "This is it, then. Let's not see each other again." She gritted her teeth, her expression twisting into a snarl. "Leo, you will regret this." Clara later posted on her social media account, "My karma must be terrible to end up dating someone with an avoidant attachment style." People in the comments section began asking her what had happened. She simply replied, "I got blindsided with a breakup." It was Mark who told me about all of this. I had already deleted and blocked Clara and all of her friends from my own accounts. When I explained to Mark that Clara had brought her male colleague home with her, his attitude towards the situation changed completely. He spent the rest of the evening criticizing her actions. "Is she crazy? And now she's trying to blame you, saying you have an avoidant attachment style? Why doesn't she mention that she brought another guy home? Just you wait. I'm going to expose her." Mark was typing furiously on his phone as he spoke. As expected, not long after he posted his own comment on her status, Clara deleted the entire post. He was still angry and wanted to continue the argument with her online, but I managed to talk him out of it. "It's fine," I told him. "Even without the situation with Daniel, she and I were never going to work out in the long run." Clara and I came from entirely different worlds. Her parents were high-ranking government officials, and she was their only child, accustomed to a life of privilege. My parents, on the other hand, were farmers with no savings or retirement plan to speak of. They had always favored my older sister and my younger brother, doting on them while largely ignoring me. Their plan had been for me to start working in a factory immediately after I finished middle school. The only reason that didn't happen was because my grades were exceptionally good. I scored in the top 10 in the entire city on my exams, which led one of my high school teachers to personally intervene and ensure I could continue my education. Going to college was my only way to escape that suffocating environment at home. Although Clara never explicitly said anything, I could always sense a subtle air of superiority from her. When we would go out to a nice restaurant and I would ask to pack up the leftovers we'd barely touched, she would imply that I was being cheap. When I would spend time comparison shopping to find the best price on something, she saw it as a waste of time. In the future, she imagined for us, I was supposed to quit my job after we got married and become a stay-at-home husband. But I have my own career and my own ambitions. Even if my current position isn't at the highest level, I worked incredibly hard for it, beating out 1,000 other applicants. Why should I be expected to give up my entire life just for her, to become a husband whose world revolves solely around his wife and children? To this day, I can still vividly recall the overwhelming sense of shame and inadequacy I felt when I first met Clara's parents. They looked me over as if I were a piece of produce at a market, waiting to be assessed and priced. In the end, neither of us was willing to compromise for the other. The incident with Daniel was really just the final trigger for a breakup that was probably inevitable. To try and lift my spirits, after the breakup, Mark took me to a bar for a drink. We had just found a table and sat down when a young woman, who looked to be in her early 20s, came over and asked for my phone number. After she walked away, Mark's eyes followed her. He muttered under his breath. That one just now wasn't bad. She looked like some kind of aspiring pop star. The girl did look like she was still in college. When she spoke, you could see her sharp canine teeth, which gave her a youthful and charming appearance. "I'm not really looking to start dating right now," I said, dismissing the idea. "Then why did you give her your number?" Mark teased, a playful look in his eye. They were drawing cards over at that table. I could tell they were playing Truth or Dare. I nodded my head in the direction of a nearby table where a group of similarly aged young women was starting another round of their game. Sure enough, after I got up to leave the bar, the girl sent me a message explaining that she had lost a dare and had been forced to ask for my number. I didn't reply to her message. I just deleted the entire chat conversation. On the 7th day after our breakup, Daniel appeared in a picture on Clara's social media feed. Mark was the one who told me about it, laughing as he explained the situation. She set the post so that only I could see it. I asked a few of her best friends, and none of them saw it. She's betting that I'll tell you about it, so she posted it specifically for you to see. You don't think she's trying to orchestrate some big, dramatic apology tour to win you back, do you? The photograph she posted only showed half of an arm in the passenger seat of a car, with no caption to explain it. Around the same time, a friend request from Clara popped up on my phone. The note attached to it simply said, "Let me see the dog." I hit the ignore button. A moment later, another request came through. This time the note read, "We raised the dog together. Just because we broke up doesn't mean I can't even see him, right?" I was suddenly incredibly grateful that I had been so meticulous about keeping the original purchase contract and all the payment records for Buddy. When I sent copies of them to her, her angry reaction was immediate and obvious. "You son of a bitch, you were planning to break up with me all along, weren't you? You're really something else, Leo, turning this around on me after you're the one who changed. Answer my call. We need to talk about this. Unblock me." I frowned and made a soft clicking sound with my tongue. So annoying. The next time I saw that same young woman, it was at the same bar. She seemed to be a regular there. She walked in with a group of her friends, wearing a denim jacket and casually lighting a cigarette. As she looked up from the flame, her eyes met mine across the room. I held her gaze for a second before looking away without any expression, my attention returning to the singer performing on the small stage. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see that she was watching me for a little while. It was clear that we were not from the same world. The seemingly unremarkable jacket she was wearing cost over $4,000, and her lighter was an expensive DuPont model. Of course, I didn't recognize any of these luxury brands myself. It was Mark, sitting next to me, who was staring with wide eyes and muttering about their high cost. He casually took a selfie and posted it to his social media feed. What difference would one more wealthy person in the world make? I thought the same thing. After a little while, another girl came over to our table to ask for my number. Her ears were bright red, and she seemed a bit flustered. It was obviously another dare. This time I gave her my number, then blocked her number before I left the bar. As I walked past the booth where the group of young women was sitting, I clearly heard someone scoff. "You only asked for his number because you lost a dare. So he deleted you. What's the big deal? Why are you all acting so sad about it?" Outside the bar, Mark got a call from some other friends and had to leave, so I was left waiting for my ride by myself. A moment later, a black Rolls-Royce pulled up to the curb in front of me. The familiarity of the car made me instinctively frown and turn to walk away. The person inside quickly got out of the car and called my name. "Leo, let's just talk for a minute." It was Clara, who I hadn't seen in days. She grabbed my arm, preventing me from leaving. I tried to pull away without making a scene. "Let go of me. I'm not in the habit of chatting with my ex-girlfriends. If you don't let go, I'm going to call the police." She only held on tighter, as if she was afraid I would run away from her. Her beautiful eyebrows were knitted together, and her eyes were filled with resentment. Clara opened the car door and tried to push me inside. "Just get in the car. I'll take you home." I resisted. "How did you even know I was here? Are you following me?" Clara pursed her lips, a flicker of an unnatural expression crossing her face. "I saw Mark's post." I gritted my teeth. That guy and his constant need to document everything he does. "Just say I miss Buddy. Can you just take me to see the dog?" Suddenly, a hand grabbed onto Clara's arm, the same one that was holding mine. While she was startled, another hand pulled me to safety behind them. "It's the 21st century. Are we really still kidnapping people off the street?" A lazy, familiar voice said from in front of me. It was the first girl from the bar, the one who had asked for my number as a dare. "And who are you?" Clara demanded, her face cold and her patience clearly gone. "Get out of the way. This is between me and my boyfriend." The girl replied coolly. "Boyfriend, not boyfriend, whatever. Didn't you hear him? He's not interested." The young woman's back was surprisingly reassuring to stand behind. Seeing the bar's security guards starting to head in our direction, Clara's expression darkened. I spoke before she could say another word. "Clara, when it's over, it's over. The fact that we got to this point just proves that we're not right for each other. Go home. Don't make me lose what little respect I have left for you." She stood there silently for a long moment before her voice, hoarse and strained, finally came out. "I just can't accept this." She couldn't understand how I could let go of a 4-year relationship so easily, but I had a pretty good idea why she was so unwilling to let it go. It was simply because I had left so cleanly, without any prolonged drama or fighting. She was the one who had been broken up with, and her pride couldn't handle it. Her heart couldn't handle it either. After Clara finally left, I stepped out from behind the young woman and thanked her. "Thank you for that." I paused for a moment, thinking. "What school do you go to? I should get you a plaque or something for that." What she had done could certainly be considered a good deed. The girl laughed, then took out her phone and pulled up a chat screen. It showed a message that had failed to send. She waved the phone in front of my face. "If you really want to thank me, you can add me back as a contact." The conversation on the screen had stopped right after her introduction. "My name's Sophie." The message hadn't gone through, and a bright red exclamation mark was displayed right next to it. As I added her number back into my phone, I asked, "Was that another lost dare?" Her eyes curved into a smile. "How did you know it was a dare?" I shrugged. "Just a guess." Her lips were red and her teeth were white, but her expression held a kind of lazy, world-weary charm. The smile, however, added a touch of genuine warmth. "You're pretty smart," she said. "But not this time." Sophie started texting me occasionally, subtly trying to figure out what kind of women I was interested in. When she brought up Clara, her words were filled with disdain. "Breakups really show a person's true character. Your ex's character is clearly garbage. Whatever you do, don't ever get back together with her. If you do, I will personally find you and run you over with a forklift. Has she been bothering you again? Do you need any help?" She seemed to have an endless amount of free time. "Got knocked down in a basketball game today, but I still won," she texted one afternoon, along with a proud-looking sticker. I took a short break from my work to reply with a thumbs-up emoji. "Are you hurt?" I asked. She replied almost instantly. "If I said I was, would you come and see me?" I thought about her question for a good while before answering. "Probably not, I'm at work." She didn't reply after that. It wasn't until much later that evening, after I had finished my work for the day, that I saw I had several unread messages from her. When I opened the chat and saw the picture she had sent, I nearly spat out the coffee I had just taken a sip of. The photo showed the hem of a sports bra that was slightly rolled up, revealing a firm, flat stomach. On her right side, just above her hip, there was a very faint red mark. If she hadn't been pointing directly at it, I probably wouldn't have even noticed it was there. She had written underneath the photo, in a deadpan tone, "It hurts a lot." I felt a complicated mix of emotions. "If you wait any longer," I typed back, "it'll probably heal on its own." The photo was definitely a bit too forward. I wasn't entirely sure what Sophie was trying to accomplish, so I didn't reply any further. When Mark found out about it, he slapped his thigh in amusement. "This girl is definitely trying to seduce you. Damn, she's got a great body." Remembering how Clara had managed to track me down through Mark's social media posts, a wave of irritation washed over me. "You've got some nerve. Clara and I are broken up. Why haven't you deleted her as a friend yet?" Mark just winked at me. "I'm keeping her around like a digital pet. Watching her meltdowns online is hilarious." I don't really get it. I found myself subconsciously avoiding Sophie's advances, only ever giving polite and non-committal replies to her messages. On one hand, I was worried that she was just using me as a way to pass the time and amuse herself. On the other hand, I just didn't believe in the idea of affection that comes out of nowhere. Mark said I was being paranoid. "You need to believe in love at first sight," he told me. I shut that idea down immediately. "No, I don't. That's called lust at first sight. Besides, a good-looking, wealthy girl like her would never be short on admirers." The next time I saw Sophie, it proved my theory was correct. A tall, handsome guy was pestering her at the bar. She pulled her hand away from him with an annoyed look on her face, and just as she was about to say something, she looked up, and our eyes met across the room. Her beautiful eyes lit up, and she pointed directly at me. "My boyfriend's here." I instinctively looked behind me and saw a very bewildered-looking Mark. Seeing this, the guy huffed in disbelief. "Yeah, right. You think I'm stupid? You just grabbed a random guy to pretend to be your boyfriend." Sophie made a tisking sound, then grabbed a bouquet of sunflowers from the table next to her. She walked over to me and shoved them into my arms. The bright, sunny scent of the flowers hit me immediately. She then announced to the guy with an air of pride, "Let me introduce you. This is my boyfriend, Leo." After she said that, she squeezed my shoulder and whispered pleadingly, "Just play along, please." I understood the hint immediately and smiled at the guy. "Hi, is there something you need from my girlfriend?" The guy's face instantly turned red. "I don't believe you. I've never even heard of this guy. You just hired an actor to try and trick me." Sophie frowned, her tone growing colder. "That's enough. Are you trying to force us to make out in front of you to prove it?" The guy stormed off in a huff. I watched him leave and then tried to hand the flowers back to Sophie. She had helped me out once before, and now I had helped her. In my mind, we were even. But to my surprise, Sophie didn't take the flowers back. "They're for you." The scent of the sunflowers seemed to have soaked into my clothes. The tips of her ears were slightly red as she glanced at me, then quickly looked away. She asked, "Has anyone ever told you that you're like a sunflower?" Like a sunflower? Some absurd memories flashed through my mind, and I couldn't help but laugh. She clearly didn't know that my sister's name was Rose and my brother's name was Ash. There was no beautiful or profound meaning behind my own name at all. But Clara had actually said something similar to me once. After she found out the story behind how I got my name, she had given me an oil painting of sunflowers, telling me that she would nurture me all over again, just like the flowers in the painting. Later on, she decided the painting was tacky and threw it out, frame and all. Thanks for the flowers, but I can't accept them. Just consider today my way of returning the favor for what you did last time, I said, politely declining her gift. Sophie stared at me, her eyes dark and unreadable. After a moment, her lips quirked into a smile. Leo, you really seem to want to keep your distance from me. Why is that? You don't like me? Before I could formulate an answer, a bold smile spread across her pretty face. I don't believe you. My heart skipped a beat. Even if I tried to deny it, it was obvious now that Sophie was actively trying to pursue me. I tried to talk her out of it directly. You should give it up. I'm never going to date a girl who's 10 years younger than me. She wouldn't listen. She just shot back. So what if it's 10 years? If you're rejecting me because of my age, then I don't accept it. She was fearless and direct as she fought for a chance, which left me speechless. But then I thought to myself that it didn't really matter. It was probably just a whim for her. Once the novelty of the chase wore off, she would naturally move on to someone else. I told myself that, and decided not to get any more tangled up with her. Sophie pursued me with great enthusiasm for over 4 months. One of her friends even came up to me at one point and said, "Bro, this is the longest Sophie has ever chased a guy without getting him. Keep it up, just ignore her. Let's see how long she can actually last." To be honest, I didn't think she would last this long either. During this time, she had been surprisingly tactful, always maintaining the perfect amount of distance so that I never felt pressured or overwhelmed. My initial vow to never date a girl that much younger than me was starting to waver. The moment she would see me, she would immediately stub out her cigarette and wave the smoke away from her, a bright smile breaking out on her face. "Off work? I'm taking you somewhere cool today." Sophie patted the back of her motorcycle, motioning for me to get on. I was about to shake my head, the words of refusal already on the tip of my tongue, when she started pleading. "Don't be so quick to say no. Today's my birthday. Can you just do this one thing for me as a birthday wish?" But if I was truly going to reject her, I knew I shouldn't give her any false hope. Not leading someone on is its own form of kindness, and I've always tried to stick to that principle. "No, She interrupted me. "Just for tonight. It won't be late. After tonight, I promise I'll stop bothering you. I'm begging you." Looking into her beautiful, pleading eyes, I hesitated for a rare moment, and the words caught in my throat. I asked cautiously, "Really?" Her face immediately lit up, like a puppy who had just heard the words "wanna go for a walk," and she nodded enthusiastically. "Really?" I regretted my decision the moment I got on the back of the motorcycle. It felt like my body was flying forward through the air, while my soul and my brain were desperately trying to catch up from behind. I had no choice but to wrap my arms tightly around Sophie's waist, pressing myself against her back for stability. I could hear her gleeful laughter mixed in with the rush of the wind past my ears. After about 40 minutes of riding, we finally came to a stop. The sky was completely dark by then. We were in an open, grassy field, with very few stars visible in the sky. The moon, however, was full and bright. "What did you want me to see?" I asked, looking around the empty field and then turning back to her. I saw her with her back to me, furtively fiddling with something. I heard the distinct click of a lighter, and then she turned around. She was holding a small cake with lit candles, the soft candlelight making her vibrant features look incredibly gentle. "Happy birthday, Leo. I hope I'm in your wish." I was completely stunned. The next moment, the entire sky lit up as bright as day as fireworks exploded overhead, the booming sound reaching me a second later. It took me a long moment to find my voice. "How did you know it was my birthday today?" "Mark told me," she said. A strange, sour feeling welled up in my chest, and my eyes began to sting. I took the cake from her hands, forced a smile onto my face, and said half-jokingly, "I'm the same age as Mark. Why do you call him your bro?" "But you don't call me that." She scratched her head. "That's different. I don't want you to be my brother." I raised an eyebrow. "Didn't you say that today was your birthday too?" She admitted, "I just said that to trick you into coming with me. You're so hard to get a hold of." Her tone was full of mock complaint. Then, as if suddenly remembering something, she pulled a slightly wilted bouquet of sunflowers from inside her jacket and presented it to me like it was a great treasure. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I took the flowers from her, my voice soft. "Don't give me sunflowers anymore. I don't like them." I was a sickly child. A neighbor once gave my parents a pot of sunflowers, but my parents had no idea how to care for plants, and the flowers wilted and died within a week. My father got angry and cursed the flower, calling it cheap and short-lived, just like me. A neighborhood committee member happened to be visiting our home that day to register names for the census, and since I didn't have a name yet, my father just spat out Leo on the spot. So, whenever someone brought up the meaning of my name, I always felt a deep sense of irony. After I finished telling her the story, Sophie frowned, a look of sympathy in her eyes. Of course, I didn't expect a kid who grew up surrounded by love and privilege to be able to truly empathize with my experience. I just needed someone to talk to. But then, she suddenly pulled me into a tight hug and whispered in my ear, affirming each word slowly and clearly. "You are wonderful. The flowers are wonderful, and Leo will always be worthy of love." The fireworks continued to burst brilliantly in the dark sky above us. A genuine smile spread across my face, and for the very first time, I reciprocated Sophie's feelings. "Thank you. My wish is for both of our futures to be even better. Sophie, you're in my wish." On the way back, Sophie insisted on taking a picture of our hands and posting it on her social media. You couldn't see our faces in the photo, just our two hands with our fingers intertwined. Not long after she posted it, she got a phone call. I could only vaguely hear her saying words like, "It worked." I just assumed she was talking about her successful confession of her feelings and didn't think much more of it. When Mark found out that we were officially dating, he teased me. "So, what's it like dating someone so much younger?" I glanced over at Sophie, who was busy playing with my dog on the floor. "Clingy," I said. "Extremely clingy." She was the complete opposite of Clara in every way. She was obsessed with marking her territory on me and leaving her personal mark on everything that belonged to me. Her possessiveness and her need for control were off the charts. After she found out that Buddy was a dog I had gotten while I was still with Clara, she wasn't even very nice to him anymore. Lately, she had been bugging me to knit her a scarf. I have absolutely no talent for that kind of thing, but thinking about Sophie's expensive tastes, I went out and bought the best quality yarn I could find. I was incredibly busy with work, but I had to find time in my evenings to watch online tutorials on how to knit a scarf. During a video call one night, Sophie watched me struggle with the needles and the yarn, a huge smile on her face. Her roommate, who was standing behind her, marveled at the scene. "Look at that goofy grin on your face. You've really fallen for him, huh?" The words caught me off guard, and I instinctively looked up from my knitting. Sophie's face had already darkened. She cursed under her breath, and her roommate awkwardly backed away from the camera. "Don't listen to her," Sophie said quickly. "They're all just jealous that I'm in a relationship." I nodded and went back to wrestling with the ball of the yarn. When I didn't hear her say anything for a while, I looked up again and saw Sophie watching me cautiously. "You're not mad, are you?" I was confused. No, why would I be? I wasn't going to get angry over a thoughtless comment made by a college student. Hearing my answer, Sophie finally let out a visible sigh of relief. The scarf took me half a month to complete. I had to unravel it and re-knit it over and over again until it was finally done. When I finally gave it to Sophie, she looked down at it for a long time. "Thank you," she said, her voice laced with an unreadable emotion. "I love it." I had a feeling that something was off, but I couldn't figure out what it was. I just patted her on the head. I was out walking Buddy in the evening when I ran into someone I hadn't seen in a long time. She was wearing a gray overcoat and standing under a tree, watching me quietly. Buddy recognized her before I did, his tail already wagging like a helicopter rotor. The smile on my face froze, and I emotionlessly ended the phone call I was on. It was Clara. After I had blocked all of her contacts, she had resorted to calling me from other people's phones. She was still hung up on why I had broken up with her. She demanded a reason that she could accept. "Even if I'm going to die, you have to let me know why," she had said dramatically. She claimed she would never be able to move on without a clear reason. I thought she had a conveniently short memory, acting like the victim when she was the one who had brought her male colleague home in the first place, so I had told her seriously, "You were testing me. You were testing my boundaries. You were testing to see how much I would tolerate. It was so obvious that he liked you, and you didn't reject him. Clara, we're not kids anymore. Playing passive doesn't count as turning him down. To someone who likes you, your non-rejection is a green light. Today you asked me to give up the passenger seat for him. Tomorrow, you might ask me to give up my wife for him. If I had agreed this time, how could you guarantee there wouldn't be a next time? I just didn't give you the chance to hurt me. What are you so upset about?" On top of all that, there was her family's disapproval and her growing coldness towards me day by day. I didn't want to dig up old grievances. In the end, I just said calmly, "I'm not in the habit of being friends with my exes. The best exes are the ones who act like they're dead. I hope you can do that. Of course, I won't bother you either. Don't call me again." Apparently, she hadn't been able to do that. I tugged on Buddy's leash, about to take a different path to avoid her, but Clara called out to me. "How have you been lately?" I could tell just by looking at her that she hadn't been doing great. She was thinner than the last time I had seen her, with faint dark circles under her eyes. "Great," I said, not wanting to get into a long conversation with her. But she knelt down and held out her hand to Buddy, who immediately trotted over to her, his tail wagging. "Are you with that girl now?" she asked, stroking Buddy's head and looking up at me with a hint of longing in her eyes. I turned my head away, avoiding her gaze. "That's none of your business." "Don't be so hostile," she said. "Even though we broke up, I still want you to be happy. But do you really know her?" I stopped walking. This wasn't about me anymore. It was about Sophie. "What do you mean by that?" Clara didn't say anything. She just showed me a picture on her phone. I just took this. It was a photo of Sophie at the bar. She had just told me on the phone not 10 minutes earlier that she was in her dorm room studying. "She plays way harder than you think," Clara said. "If you don't believe me, you can go and see for yourself." Clara was sure that this would make me suspicious of Sophie. But if it was just about her lying about going to the bar, that wasn't a huge deal to me. I wasn't going to try and control Sophie's life. But from Clara's attitude, it seemed like there was more to the story. I decided to go to the bar and see for myself what was going on. Because I refused to get into Clara's car, she just followed me slowly from behind in her own vehicle. When I got out of my car in the bar's parking lot, I frowned and asked her, "What are you following me for?" She replied, "To watch the show." I gritted my teeth, that bitch. "So, Sophie, are you going to let her watch this show?" Sophie proved with her actions that yes, she would. Not only did she let Clara watch my public humiliation, she utterly destroyed my dignity in the process. When I walked into the bar, I saw Sophie kissing a guy through a thin piece of paper. The guy looked familiar. It was the same tall, handsome guy who had been cornering her at the bar before. He was blushing as he sat close to Sophie. "I almost thought you were really settling down with that old guy," he said. "Was it worth spending so much time on a game?" Sophie replied, "It was worth it, since I won. So what if he's like some uptight professor? He still spent half a month knitting a scarf for me like a good little boy." The girl in the middle, Sophie, was holding the very scarf I had just given her the day before, a look of complete indifference on her face. The guy next to her tried to grab it, but she playfully dodged him. Someone else at the table excitedly asked her, "So what's the next game? Want to bet on when you can sleep with him?" The words were immediately followed by a burst of harsh, cruel laughter. Behind me, I heard Clara curse under her breath and saw her reach for a beer bottle as if she was about to go after them. I held her back. "Don't do anything rash." A flash of pain crossed Clara's eyes. She looked at me with a mixture of frustration and disappointment. "Are you just going to stand there and let them insult you like that?" Before she could finish her sentence, I walked straight over to their table. When she saw me, Sophie instantly panicked. "Leo, what are you doing here? Let me explain." I snatched the scarf from her hands, then grabbed a beer from the table and threw its contents in her face. My gaze was calm. Should we even bother with a breakup speech, or would a game over be more appropriate? My suppressed emotions felt like a shaken-up soda bottle that was just starting to fizz over. I looked with utter disgust into the eyes that I had once found so beautiful, and, ignoring her pleading gaze, I cursed her viciously. "You love playing games so much, why don't you just play yourself to death? Get lost. I never want to see you again." The guy sitting next to her couldn't stay quiet any longer. He stood up and pointed a finger at me. "What's your problem, man? You really have a thing for older women, huh?" Sophie screamed at him. "Shut the fuck up!" After yelling at the guy, she reached for me, but Clara rushed forward and shoved her away. Recognizing who it was, Sophie became enraged. "Are you still clinging to Leo, you bitch?" Clara sneered back at her. "I'm here to teach a little monster like you a lesson. Was the game fun?" Sophie's eyes turned red, and she lunged at Clara, starting a physical fight. My mind was a chaotic mess. For a brief moment, I had only one thought. Let them fight. Let them kill each other. But in the end, reason won out over raw emotion. I called out to Clara. "Let's go, Clara." They both came from wealthy backgrounds where they could get into trouble and have it swept under the rug without any real consequences. I would be the only one who would suffer the negative repercussions. Hearing my voice, Clara stopped fighting and came back to my side. Sophie sat on the floor, looking disheveled, like an abandoned stray animal. She stared at me, her eyes locked on mine. I didn't look at her again. I just turned and walked out of the bar. It was late by the time I finished helping Clara straighten out her messy clothes and clean the small cuts on her hands. In just a few short hours, I had experienced another sudden, dramatic breakup. The moment I walked out of that bar, I deleted every one of Sophie's contacts from my phone. I realized with a sense of grim irony that I was getting frighteningly good at cutting myself off from relationships. "I've made things clear with Daniel," Clara said as I was putting away the first aid kit. "Nothing like that will ever happen again. Can we—" She suddenly grabbed my hand. I pulled my hand back with a cold expression and rejected her outright before she could even finish her sentence. "No." I knew what she was going to ask. Clara wasn't surprised by my answer. She let out a long, weary sigh. If you could let go of our 4 years together just like that, you can definitely let go of a few months with that little girl. You have to be fair. Don't get back together with her either. I rolled my eyes at her. You don't have to tell me that. Failed relationships aren't worth looking back on, and people who betray you don't get forgiven. I told Mark what had happened. He was silent for a long time after I finished the story. Dude, I'm not trying to judge, he finally said. But in all these years, I never realized you were such a magnet for toxic people. No wonder that girl was calling me like a maniac yesterday, asking where you were. He then voiced the same question that I had been thinking. She loves playing games so much. How has she not played herself to death yet? I didn't say anything in response. I had already said all the curses I needed to say directly to her. Since Sophie couldn't reach me by phone, she started waiting for me downstairs from my apartment building. The bruises on her face from her fight with Clara hadn't faded yet. The first time she saw me, she opened her mouth to speak, but then stopped. She wanted to explain, but she was afraid that I would just tell her to get lost. Stop coming here, I said, my voice flat. Moving is a huge pain. I was annoyed. Her face went pale. I just moved in not long ago. I don't want to move again. You know what I mean, right? After a long silence, Sophie's voice was choked with tears. You're never going to forgive me, are you? I replied, Don't ask questions you already know the answer to. She persisted. I admit, I only got close to you at first because of the game, but after all this time, I really did fall for you. Whether you believe me or not, the things I said to you weren't fake, and the things I did for you weren't fake, and you liked me too, didn't you? And now she was trying to play the victim. I almost laughed out loud, because she thought I liked her. She felt she had become entitled. So what? So you think you don't owe me anything, and that gives you the right to use me as a bet, as a piece of gossip for you and your friends? Your entire approach to me was based on a lie. How am I supposed to believe a single word you say? I leaned in close to her and whispered in her ear, Sophie, the only thing I regret right now is giving you my number that day because I was afraid you'd be embarrassed about losing a game. Don't you think it would have been so much better if we had never met at all? After that, Sophie never came looking for me again. Instead, my company suddenly landed a major partnership with a huge corporation. As the project led for our side of the partnership, my career took off. After doing a little bit of digging, I found out that the chairman of the corporation had the last name Lynn, and he had only one daughter. In that respect, Sophie was better than Clara. A tangible benefit is worth 100 times more than a simple verbal apology. Looking at my suddenly much larger paycheck, I suppressed a smile. If this is how my love life is going to end, I'm willing to date a lot more people. After all, as long as you can learn to let go, there's nothing in life you can't get over. Sophie's story. The first time I noticed Leo, it was because a friend of mine pointed him out to me. She gestured towards a man sitting on a sofa, not far from our table, and asked with a laugh, Doesn't he have that whole uptight professor who secretly plays in a rock and roll band vibe? I looked over at him. He was a man with gold-rimmed glasses and a crisp white shirt, with refined, handsome features. He was shaking a dice cup with a cold, focused expression, his clean, gentle aura completely out of place with the chaotic, colorful lights of the bar. My friends and I were playing Truth or Dare, as we usually did, and my dare was to get a stranger's phone number. I don't know what came over me, but I went up to that man. As I expected, he didn't refuse my request. In my 20 years of life, very few people had ever refused me anything. But I didn't expect that as soon as I sent him a text explaining why I'd asked for his number, he would delete my contact. He had some personality. When my friend suggested that absurd game later on, I wasn't interested at first, until I saw Leo at the bar again. If we're going to play, let's go big, I thought. 3 months, I bet I can win him over. So I helped Leo at the bar entrance, deliberately saying those ambiguous things to his ex-girlfriend. My goal was obvious. Leo was hard to get. So hard that he gave me no openings at all. My friends all told me to just give up, that it was just a silly game we had come up with on a whim. I didn't listen to them. I couldn't explain why. He wasn't my type at all, and he was so cold and distant to me. But I wanted Leo's eyes on me. Just a little more, and a little more. Leo has a serious thing about boundaries. His annoying ex-girlfriend, Clara, came to me, almost gloating, and said, "You play around so much. Leo will never accept someone like you." I froze, feeling deeply offended. I put on a sarcastic smile and asked her, "So he dumped you because you were dirty?" Sure enough, Clara looked just as offended and angry as I felt. But then she told me triumphantly, "No, I wasn't dirty. Especially not when we first got together. I'm not like you. Even though we're broken up now, I truly had him. You can't even get close to him. You'd better pray you can hide your past from him for the rest of your life." Clara really got under my skin. I decided to try one last time. If Leo rejected me again, I would give up. But this time, of all times, Leo agreed to come with me. I was ecstatic, but at the same time I was terrified. Just as Clara had said, I would have to hide my true self from him for the rest of my life. The day Leo caught me at the bar, the sword of Damocles that had been hanging over my head finally fell. It smashed me to pieces. I wanted to tell Leo that none of it was fake, that I really did love him, but I had seen how decisive Leo could be. With him, you only ever get one chance. Once you lose it, it's gone forever. Those beautiful eyes were no longer gentle, but full of disgust for me. I knew then that we were impossible. For many years after that, a sharp pain would ache in my heart from time to time.